Just start this. Is this the clicker? Or do I
actually
press
never
it?
used the clicker in here, so probably.
I'll just do the mouse because I'm not good with technology. Okay, so I'll first introduce myself. So my name is Sienna Goodrich. I'm a first year doc student in the Counselor of Education Supervision. My work and kind of what I have done, so I graduated from Georgia State in clinical mental health counseling in 2019, so I'm very new into counseling. And my work has involved children and adolescents only. So I haven't worked with adults. I have worked with 3 adults ever, but that was like very uncomfortable for me. So I'm still trying to expand my ability there. But my sweet spot is ages 4 to 17. Like I just love working with children and play therapy, but I'm trying to break through. And currently I work in the inpatient crisis stabilization unit for children. So yeah. Okay, so I like to do a check-in, and this is something I have done because working with children, a lot of children can't explain how they feel, and it's not fair to be like, pick a feeling word. So I do a lot of colors or like dancing how you feel, but I'm not gonna have you guys dance. So I brought these from like Home Depot, where you can pick a color, and I'll explain kind of the next step. So if everyone could pick a color to relate to their mood. And I'll stand back because I know it's COVID. And then for the people on Zoom, you guys can,
These are some nice
for
swatches.
the people on Zoom, you guys can just check in with a feeling, like a color, if you had a word to match your mood. And you guys can keep the colors because I know with COVID and stuff, so they're free, so.
Let me back up so y'all can also check out the swatches. Let me not.
I try to pick as a lot of colors. The painter was looking at me like, what are you doing? But they're free, so I was just like this, taking everything.
No, that's smart.
Creative, I like it.
Let them keep staring.
All right, I'm just gonna go with that. 'Cause then I don't want to be touching them all.
Listen, I got my watermelon hand sanitizer, so all good. Let me see, let me see. Let me see. Oh, this one says magical. Okay, here we go.
Did you want to pick a color to check in?
I'm just observing.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry y'all. Observer role.
Okay, so now that you guys got a color for the people in person, you guys are going to share to the class the emotion that you feel and how it relates to the color you picked. And then if you are experiencing any negative emotions, please identify a way to how you can de-escalate that emotion that you're feeling that is negative. So this is just kind of like an exercise for emotional regulation. And then for the people on Zoom, like I said, you'll just check in with the color. So do the people on Zoom or the people in person want to go first? Okay, Zoom, they're pointing to Zoom. So you can just introduce yourself with your name and just saying the color that you would pick.
Dang, I was pointing at them. I'll go ahead and go first. My name is Lindsay. Hello, nice to meet you. 3rd year doc program.
Ooh.
My color is green because that's my favorite color and I go for it at all moments. But more of like a mellow toned down green just because I'm a little anxious about this, all the election stuff that's going on. Not the normal vibrant green.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that all I need to say?
Yep, that's good. It's just if you were feeling,
It's not written down.
I guess the other prompt was if you were feeling a negative emotion, just any way you could de-escalate that emotion.
Oh, okay. I will go on a walk with my dogs at the end of, or at the beginning of the break.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
I'm Black today. I too am dealing with a lot of election anxiety. And I attended a funeral today, and it's just been sort of a heavy day.
Yeah.
And I also will probably walk when class is over. But frankly, I took 2 CBD gummies before class started, and that has really helped already. So,
Good.
full disclosure, that's, it helps.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for your loss. If you need
Thank
to step out or anything, I'm not a real teacher. You can step out. So.
We're an educator in training.
Yes. Who's next?
Hey y'all, I
Hi.
am Jasmine McCullough. I am a second year clinical mental health master's student.
Oh, nice.
And my color too is black. I've been dealing with a lot of grief as well, and hopefully not the death of America again. So let's see what happens. As far as coping, I guess, I don't know. I guess I just don't think about it. I don't know what that, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Who's next?
I can go next.
Okay.
My name is Melina, and I'm in the second year cohort for school counseling education specialist. And I would say that I am blue right now, but like a grayish blue, kind of like just feeling, anxious about tonight, and then just overwhelmed with school in general. So I think during our break, I'm gonna call a friend and just check in.
Great. I like that.
I can go.
Okay.
I'm Tyler. I'm a second year Master Mental Health Counseling member. My color was blue, and like Lindsay, phoning a friend is kind of my go-to.
Thank you.
I think that leaves me. So hello, I'm Philip. I am a third year student in the Counselor Ed and Supervision PhD program. And my color was also blue. I don't know, I just felt really anxious this week, just about a number of things. So I think for me, I think it's the Myers-Briggs test where they have the different categories. Futuristic is one of mine, and so I get really excited about thinking about the future. And so a lot of the challenges that I'm navigating right now, like I think about the bigger picture in the future to kind of help me get through those things.
I like that. I need to do that right now.
Ashley, I'm so sorry I didn't introduce myself, but I'm Ashley. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you
I'm a
too.
second year PhD counselor and student.
I need to talk to all of you guys because I'm
Sorry, I'm so
drowning.
rude.
Okay, thank you. And then for the people in person.
I'm Annie. I'm a master of social work student.
Oh.
And I chose blue, kind of because I thought of it in two different ways. Like I'm calm, but I also have a lot of stuff on my mind too, so I feel kind of overwhelmed at the same time. And when I go home, I'm gonna do a face mask.
Ooh. Nice.
So I unexpectedly chose pink because I'm trying to have compassion and approachability with folks, especially at my job, who are pretending we are not living in a pandemic, which is amazing. And also I want to be mindful of regulating any of my own emotions that might come across stronger. So I'm also trying to elicit more feedback from my friends and peers about what I'm trying to facilitate. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I'm Alyssa. I just picked this color intuitively. It's like a kind of burgundy color. It is called sun-dried tomato. I think the word I would give this would be apprehension. And I think the way that I will navigate that is by reaching out to loved ones.
So I picked this lavender color. What really called out to me, like I was looking for like the most effeminate color possible because that's what I always do when I think about my mood. I never identify with anything solid. I'm like, I don't know. I never feel that mask. But like this one said magical on it, so I was like, death. Always. even when I'm super distressed because this election is absolutely scary for all of us. Like, you know, if anything, like I always want to hold on to like my magic and my resilience. Like, you know, some people will think, what would Jesus do? I think, what would Dr. Singh do? And it's like holding on to like the resilience. So I'm just trying to honor her today, really trying to like hold myself together and be like, okay, I'm gonna own today, because you know, this is one of those days that for a lot of people, our lives are gonna change, and this is a future worth fighting for, so I'm just gonna keep my affirmations strong, hang in there. If I'm experiencing any apprehension just throughout the night, I know that I'll talk to my husband when I get home, so I'm good. And I've got watermelon hand sanitizer, so that's also really good.
And thank you. And the color I picked out was Hearts of Palm, and it's a palm green.
That's cute.
And I just feel this way because I feel like I'm over the hump of the assignment. So there was a lot of heavy written papers, and this is like the last thing I had to do, and I can just take a break real quick.
Running downhill.
You said what?
Oh, running downhill.
Yes. So I'm feeling like relieved and just good to go. So I don't have anything I need to de-escalate. I did de-escalate with some Chick-fil-A because I get myself once a week Chick-fil-A. So that was like my coping skill for the day. So just a little background before I go into the PowerPoint is I did take an addiction class in my master's program, but I was telling some of you guys it was a 3 weeks condensed course because it was during that May semester. And so it was like a flash course. It was like the craziest course I ever took. It was good, and it was taught by Dr. Dew. But it's just, I'm not very familiar with addictions. I have worked with children whose family has had addictions, but I never had a client that is addicted or just dealing with it within their family. So I did try to cater this towards addiction, but if you guys have any feedback or if you feel like I'm missing something, like please chime in. This is an open discussion because I don't really have that much experience. So emotional regulation is just the ability to regulate your emotions. And not only are you able to regulate your emotions, but when you're triggered, you're able to de-escalate. So it's not saying that you're invincible and nothing would trigger you. It just means that you're able to de-escalate your own emotions. And then emotional dysregulation is is exactly the opposite. So it's where you are not able to regulate your own emotions, and you can be triggered and you're not able to engage in coping skills. So the importance of emotional regulation in addictions, and I'm gonna look this way, so because it's just weird to look this way, so sorry about that. So it's essential in addiction because it is known for clients to use substances or rewarding behaviors to change the way they feel. And we really need to make sure we're introducing emotion regulation so they can learn that there's other rewards and other incentives to control their emotions. And so we want to help clients move from maladaptive coping skills to adaptive coping skills. And so of course, like that takes time. And after looking at your discussion, I now know way much more in addictions than I thought. And so I would definitely say this is easier said than done. But that's kind of our goal as counselors. We want to slowly move them to like, yes, you were originally looking for this and you did find it in that substance. However, we can move on to doing this and still get that reward and have healthy alternatives. And then this is just a diagram of just emotional regulation. So this is kind of like the cycle of how to avoid your emotional, how to avoid emotional dysregulation. So step one would be to notice how you feel. So this can be done in therapy through teaching body sensations, mindfulness, yoga, and little children. I do a lot of body sensation work and just saying like, dance how you feel, draw how you feel, because again, children can't use words. So I know most of you guys might work with adults, so that might be a little different, but you can use expressive arts. And
Adults still like to color.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. They love it. So just don't shorten what you think you can do. And then number two is name the emotion. So what is it and what word best describes it? So we kind of already did that when we did the check-in for the color. So this is just kind of checking in with your body and your awareness and how you're feeling. And then three is to accept the emotion and ask yourselves what prompted, and don't judge or condone it, just let it be for now. And then four is to investigate it. So how intense is that emotion, and how are you breathing, and what are you physically feeling? And then 5 is to release it. So notice and allow your thoughts and release judgments of the struggles and breathe deeply. So one thing I will say is that this is just like a beautiful little model, but what I have always told my clients is sometimes breathing doesn't work. It doesn't work for me, so I'm not gonna say, just breathe. Do whatever you feel is best fit for your body, because you know your body more than anyone else. So sometimes it's like me, it's like, and I think this is because I work with children, but I like to blow bubbles. So I know that is deep breathing, but I like to see like visual of me like relaxing, or I like to like exercise or different things like that. So just do whatever you feel is best fit for you. And then here's some examples of to promote emotional regulation. So writing in a journal, meditation, exercise, and developing a plan. So not a safety plan, but just like, here's some list of things that I can do when I am dysregulated. And then also therapy to develop the awareness in your body. So I will speak again on children. You guys can chime in on adults. So I do like an anger thermometer with my children when I have worked with them. And we kind of list from 0 to 10, like what put you at a 1, what put you at a 2, and what is your body sensations? And that is just an example of how in therapy I help them develop the emotional language that they need to say. And sometimes they'll tell me like, I'm at a 3 because I'm feeling this. So in adult work, it would look different. And then I do have a video on how we can help as counselors, but do you guys have any questions so far or any comments to add? If not, we'll keep going.
I love that model, by the way, of emotional regulation.
Mm-hmm.
I would love, is the copy of this PowerPoint on ELC yet?
Yeah, I think she posted it on ELC.
Great, I love that model.
Yeah, and I always say take what fits and leave the rest. Cause like I said, it does say like breathe deeply, but that might not work for you, so you can replace it with whatever your coping skill is.
Also, Deanna, before you press
Yeah.
play, the control panel right in front of you has a volume on there, and it's probably on mute.
Okay, let me see. Oh, yeah, it is.
It should be on the top right. It says main volume, and you can take it off mute and turn it up.
Okay, I pressed the turn on, so I hope this works. No.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, I think I just took it off. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yes.
In previous videos, we've talked about the importance of practicing various types of plans with our kids or clients, such as what they can do when they get upset and how they can be successful with various activities and social interactions. Practicing helps reduce the amount of processing needed in the moment because they've already gone through the situation. Let's talk a little bit more about what's happening on a cognitive skill level during escalation and how practicing helps everyone. Let's take the case of a general what can you do when you get upset kind of plan, which we call a reactive plan. Without a plan that's been practiced, we're demanding that the person use several cognitive skills in the moment of their escalation, which is a problem because whenever any one of us gets escalated, our cognitive skills drop. That's right, being mad makes us dumb, and our brains may revert to more primitive responses to handle the stress. This means that without practicing the plan, our kid or client will need to understand what's going on, stay calm enough to figure out an appropriate course of action, think through the consequences of each possible course of action, and then follow through, all while resisting impulses coming from the more primitive parts of their brain. What we have to remember is that people with developmental disabilities, mental health issues, trauma, or still developing brains struggle with many of the skills that are needed to achieve emotional regulation. There isn't a structure or piece of the brain that emotionally regulates us, but rather emotional regulation is the result of multiple executive functioning skills working together to calm us down, oftentimes in an instant. When you don't have these skills, even on a good day, you're missing critical tools, which may mean that you're more likely to get upset over small stressors, or that when you do get upset, you engage in behaviors beyond just being mad, like physical aggression, property destruction, or other challenging behaviors. By practicing the plan, we can help the person shortcut to emotional regulation more easily because we're helping them process information and make the right choice ahead of time. After we identify some coping strategies, we can have our kid or client practice them. We may practice randomly or set a structured time. Then, when escalation happens, we can prompt the person to follow the plan, which now they don't have to come up with on their own in that moment. It would be best if our prompt was nonverbal, such as pointing to an object that we designated means it's time to follow the plan. Of course, when we were practicing the plan, we point to the object to get that practice going. Now, instead of having to use all of the skills needed to emotionally regulate on their own, our kid or client can think about the plan which we've already discussed and practiced. They may resist at first, which is why it's important that we avoid talking. When we talk, we demand that their brain use various cognitive skills, which is the last thing they need right now. Our hope is that, even if they struggle at first, as they have more time to think about the plan, they'll begin the calming process. Once they get to the point of following through on the plan and engaging in a coping skill, hopefully they'll calm down quickly and with fewer challenging behaviors. As the person's brain continues to develop, or as they continue to practice emotionally regulating through these plans that you make with them, our goal is that they will naturally begin to use their coping skills independently in their everyday lives, because they will have had more practice in using them successfully and seeing their benefit. If the plan you make and practice doesn't work, wait until the person is completely calm and open to having a discussion. This may need to happen on a different day than the day of the escalation. With both of you calm and not invested in the moment, you can talk about why the plan didn't work and make a plan to help it be more successful the next time. Of course, make sure that you practice any changes that you make. Perhaps you just need to try the original plan again without making any changes, but do a few extra practice sessions. In our next video, we'll talk about common unhelpful responses that we as parents or professionals may have when someone escalates and how we can avoid those responses. As you know, our videos are free to everyone, and so I'm completely reliant on those who watch them and believe in me to keep them going. Please consider giving to us monthly on patreon.com/organbehavior or support.
Okay, so that PowerPoint, just to summarize, it kind of went into the science behind emotional regulation and why we can't just tell a client with addictions, like, you just need to cope. So you have to really, the way I explain it with kids is I always say, like, imagine you're on a basketball team and you never go to practice. Do you expect to make all the winning shots? And of course the kid would say, no. And then I say, okay, why? And they say, because I didn't practice. So that's the same way that how I compare it to emotional regulation. With any clients, regardless of what they're doing, it's not something that's gonna happen overnight. And it's important to tell the client that, like, hey, like, yes, I'm introducing these coping skills and you might mess up and that's okay, but we have to retrain your brain on how to de-escalate your body, so. And then these are therapies that are effective in substance abuse. So these are the evidence-based practices that have been shown to work with substance abuse. So the first one is behavioral therapy, and the way I kind of explained it is kind of saying like how behavioral therapy views addiction, and then how do they work with addiction within that lens. So in behavioral therapy, they look at substance abuse as a learned behavior pattern that gets reinforced, and it gets reinforced when they do that substance or the addiction that they have. Using behavioral therapy tenet is suggested to teach clients to change the reinforcement patterns that are used to maintain the substance abuse. So to do that, you would introduce alternative behaviors that will provide the same reward. So this is again showing clients that not necessarily shaming them and helping the client understand that yes, addiction could be a part of you, but there's other things too that we can do to still bring reward systems. And I don't know if you guys, this just made me think, this is kind of related to the PowerPoint, but if you heard of internal family systems, that's what I think about with addictions, because you don't want to create shame, and you want to show the client like, yes, addiction has gotten you to this, but this is what this alternative can also get you to, too, so. It's not a theory or a model I use, I just went to a training and I really liked it. It talks about parts of self and how you should honor all parts in your body, so.
actually just learned about it because I interviewed a clinician who specializes in porn addiction for a book I'm writing, and he uses internal family systems theory to work with pornography addiction in particular.
Yeah.
So I learned all about like Fireman and
Yeah.
Exiles and
It's
all of this.
amazing.
Yeah, it's a very interesting theory if you haven't heard of it yet. It really does try to reduce shame. It's great for people with addiction.
Because it just honors like every part of you. So even it works with clients that self-harm, that have trauma, depression. And like I said, I never actually did that theory or model, but it's like
Yeah, it's fairly new, so it's
Yeah.
kind of just gaining popularity, but yeah.
I did EMDR basic training this year, and a lot of those therapists use it in conjunction with EMDR
Yes.
for their trauma patients.
What is this called again? I wanna
Gosh.
get
internal family systems. And I thought it was like about families. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to
I know, I wish it had a different name. I was
Yeah.
like, this is not a systems theory. It's
Yeah.
in the person, your real family members.
And that's what it is. That's why they call it internal family systems, because it's basically saying you have like these little people that's why you function the way you function, and they
Yeah.
all have a special part in your
I
life.
call it a lot of parts here.
Yes, and
So
it-
the part of you that wants to be here today, or that still showed up
Mhm.
even though you feel this
Yeah.
way, or.
yes,
Wow.
Yeah, or the part of you that hates your addiction and the part of you that feels like, I need it. You know, there's not a evaluative component.
Yeah, even inviting certain parts to be present for certain conversations.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I would definitely say go to a workshop. I went to the Knowledge Tree about a year ago, and it was like an all-day workshop, and I just went for CEs. I was like, let me just sign up, and then after, I was like, whoa, this is really intense, and it was really good though.
That's great, yeah.
So I just thought about, that's something I didn't include on here, but it is a new intervention, so I know it would be really hard to find empirical evidence on it right now. And then another therapy that is used is cognitive therapy and substance abuse, and they view it as a dysfunctional behavior. And in treatment, the therapist focuses on changing maladaptive and distorted thoughts. So this process is known as cognitive reconstructioning. And then I have an example of a table. So this is a beautiful source Dr. G gave me about cognitive therapy.
Yes.
Because I did tell her, like, I know different therapies work, but I don't know how to apply to addiction. So she, like, provided all the sources. Thank you. So I took this table because I was reading what Dr. G sent me, and this is a beautiful way of just showing the example of how you can transform a client from having that irrational belief to a rational, more adaptive belief that they can develop over time. And again, if you see this figure, I don't know if you can read on here, but maybe on the computer. These take time, so it's not like your client, again, is gonna do this overnight, but this is the goal and the aim that you hope to do. So you're trying to change the cognition and thought. And then CBT. So CBT, which everyone knows has the most empirical evidence, and this is, the way they look at addiction is they help in recognizing and coping with the craving and managing thoughts about substance abuse, problem solving, and planning for emergencies, and recognizing irrelevant decisions and using refusal skills. So this is kind of where you are making a lot of psychoeducation is involved, because you're helping the client understand, like, yes, like you said earlier, this is a disease, and you're not just doing this to do this. Like, this is what happens in the brain, this is how your body responds. So there is a psychoeducation component to that. And then also helping the client understand, like, you will have cravings, and however, this is how you can cope and deal with it, which is emotional regulation. And then it's also, in CBT, you can also go back, and so when a client is talking about their relapse or their substance abuse, you can go back to, okay, what triggered you to start that substance abuse, or what triggered you to relapse, or what is triggering you to want to do this again. And so you're going back and you're identifying what are the triggers and how can we kind of put a stop to it. So that is CBT. And then these are my beautiful references. And do you guys have any questions?
How do you feel?
Me?
Yeah.
I feel great.
Good job.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
I did.
Yes. Go Dr.
Yes.
Did you skip it? Was there a slide right before this one, a discussion?
Oh my gosh. I'm not done. Sorry.
I'm just
Encore.
interested in what we're gonna say.
Yes,
I'm back on
encore.
stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I skipped this, because I pressed it and then it just went to
Yeah,
reference.
that's okay. I'm curious to hear their thoughts on this.
Yes, so this is the discussion, just kind of what are some ways that we can help clients in addictions deal with coping skills and controlling their emotions. So I kind of gave some examples earlier, but again, I never worked in addiction, so not only is this like a discussion for y'all, but I also want to know too. Because I do want to eventually work in addictions, but not now. So what are some ways we can help? Yes.
So, in my work that I do at Peachford with adults, I have them create a safety card. So a safety card can be anything like an index card or some sort of card, like a blank card, that they can carry in their pocket. So when they're feeling especially triggered to use, they can pull out the card and have a visual stimuli reminder of like, whether it's like affirmations that say like, hey, you're strong enough to say no, right? Or it has like a list of things that we can try, like here are my top 3 coping skills that I can use instead of actually using a substance.
Mm-hmm.
So if number 1 doesn't work, try number 2, try number 3, and if all else fails, call your sponsor right now. So that way it just gives them some sort of visual guidelines to do, especially because if their cognitive skills are diminished when they're triggered, maybe a visual stimuli can remind them of like, oh yeah, okay, this is something that I can do instead.
Yeah.
And we just have to keep in mind, I guess, like the considerations too of ableism, right? So if folks have a hard time with using visual cues or they're not able to read that well, they just need to really be mindful about like, okay, what type of card am I using? Am I using a printout or am I writing it myself so I can understand it? So just lots of little considerations and lots of room for flexibility too, with like what they want to play with.
That's cool.
I think it also depends what purpose their addiction is serving. So like, for some folks, it's that like if there's a really intense craving or like if the energy is really high, something more movement oriented, like a wall sit, going for a walk, hard exercise, just something to meet the energy of the craving can be helpful. If it's somebody who like, you know, there's other folks who really probably would benefit from more like calming things. So if there's a lot of anxious energy, after you get over that bridge, maybe doing something like coloring or deep breathing or it just, I think it depends because the substance is meeting a need. And so I think when I talk to clients, it's like, it's really hard to say, let's not do this without alternatives. I know for some folks, it's just even planning stuff, like getting out the planner and sitting with that information. A lot of folks use like TV and the internet as a distraction. It's a different distraction things now too. Lots of options.
And so what I hear from, and I'll grab you in a second. So what I hear from both of you guys is one, planning, and then also meeting the client where they're at too. So knowing what works for them and helping the client understand that.
I think as a school counselor, this makes me think a lot about kids who struggle with like internet addictions or like just compulsive behavior with like a smartphone or something. And it made me think about kind of taking bits and pieces of what they offered and like, you know, having a safety plan and also being like, who do you trust that also wants to help you get through this? Whether or not it's, I mean, preferably adults, you know, but I mean, if they're gonna, what's tough too is for kids that are remaining virtual throughout this school year, I'm like, well, we still need to get your education somehow, but how are we gonna manage that? But it definitely made me think about like having a very strong list and like a secondary and tertiary plan too. You know, I think the energy management kind of list was offered, that's huge as well, because I'm just like, it's got to go somewhere, you know, and it can't be destructive. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. Like, breathing, I would say it can be super helpful. There's certain ways that you can breathe that are more helpful than others for de-escalating a stress response, but it's really hard. Like, if you're almost in a panic attack, saying breathe deeply is not accessible. So doing something like shaking out your energy or putting in place can give that somewhere to go, so then you can access something like breathing too.
I think about you a lot too, like, and I share it with clients from what you taught us in expressive arts about doing the birthday candle blowout on your fingers. So doing that slow exhale on each of your fingers so that they have a sensory experience with deep breathing, and it helps them with calming. I talked about that.
You create an exhale-based ratio breath with
Right?
candle breath.
Yeah.
And you
I talked about that the one Sunday. I thought of you.
So bad.
Right?
That's similar to 5-star finger breathing I teach littles. And so like as they're tracing, they take a deep breath in and they're just tracing their hand and it's very self-soothing.
Yeah, candle breath is like breathing, like you're blowing out a candle really slowly, so you can feel your breath on each fingertip and then your finger goes down.
I like
And with
that.
each one, you can practice gratitude or make a wish or say a
Oh, that's
hope or
awesome.
think of someone you love. You can customize it depending on what's going on.
Mhm.
But it, like when you say breathe so like through a straw so you can feel your breath on your fingertip, then people automatically create that exhale, base ratio breath, so their exhale is longer than their inhale, which is what de-escalates your stress response.
Yeah,
So just get the exhale longer than the inhale.
I like
Be
that.
helpful.
I might need to do that when I have another assignment.
The other thing I think is great about, something Stephen just said too, is the research, especially about adolescents who game and adolescents who self-injure, and social media, when they reach that point of like, they're in that clinical range for an addictive behavior. The majority of those adolescents, when they're given a list of motives and asked to choose, why do you game or why do you cut or why do you, and the number one selected motive is to escape bad feelings or to feel something differently than feeling bad. So they know, even without knowing the words, they're using their addictive behavior as a means of emotion regulation. So they're trying, they're trying to not feel bad. And so once we're able to say, now we're gonna put that same effort into something else that's gonna be more adaptive for you and more useful for you, it's like the kids are already aware. I just want to change how I feel.
Yeah. And that's why I was saying too, like it definitely takes time and you're not, and it's very important to also not like shame the client and like be like, you're doing this because this, like, cause like you said, most of the time they know, especially in addictions, they know why they're doing the addiction. It's just kind of bringing awareness, like, yes, this does serve a purpose and acknowledging that up front, like not hiding it and then just saying, okay, and let's also learn this too.
Yes,
So.
excellent. And yeah, you keep mentioning that you work with children and young adults,
Yes.
adolescents. I did want to say that one of the things that we teach groups of adults and their families in family groups is that when an adult or when a child experiences a negative emotion, then they learn how to somehow, either adaptively or maladaptively, deal with it. So they learn through their adolescent years, this is why I do it, I'm lonely, this is why I do it, I'm angry, this is why I do it, I'm sad. And that's how all of us learn our self-regulation skills. So for our clients who start using as adolescents, which is the large majority of them, then they bump into a negative emotion, and rather than doing that hard work of learning how to get through it, they just jump over it or evade it by using a substance. So they use the substance and kind of slide past all of those emotions. So they've never learned those skills. And that's why some of the adults that we're working with, they're in their 30s and 40s, but emotionally, they have the maturity of a 13 or a 14-year-old, because that's when they started using. They never learned how to manage emotions. So all of these things that you're describing that would be appropriate for young people would really be appropriate for folks who started using in adolescence who never learned any of these skills. So just want to let you know, you have a lot of that you can bring.
Yeah, that's so sad.
I think I've done almost the same exact like anger thermometer with adults. I just call it 0 to 10 and do it more like scaling and being like, what's your body sensation? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings connected with this? Like anger is a secondary emotion, so and writing it out like a chart, like almost the same thing with adults.
Like legit, like adults, like expressive arts class would be like, I don't know why we're coloring. This is for kids, but they're still coloring as they're complaining about it. And I'm just like, oh, okay, like, sure. The little mantle is like, I don't know why we're coloring. This is for kids, and they're still coloring. Like choosing
I've seen
different
adults
colors.
get more into like collage and crafts, and yeah, it's incredible. Especially adults who didn't get to have a childhood. Like getting to revisit imagination and creativity, I think it just opens something in people, and it's a like you said, it's a language that doesn't require verbalization or words. Off the bat, it's a lot more intuitive. So even thinking about emotional regulation, which really requires people to put words around an experience that they're having really physically, our creativity can help us access that.
Yeah. I wonder if there, I mean, I'm sure there is, but like addiction counselors are specialized in expressive arts, but I assume there would be.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, creative, and I'm thinking, I know of a counselor who does sand tray with our big clients, so they really just try to access different parts of their brain, and then also, like you were saying before, sometimes, like, feeling or moving is just better for people who are in early recovery than trying to access the cognitive part of their brain, which is what we're doing in talk therapy. Some of them just are not there yet. Their brain hasn't healed enough to have that kind of like insightful, in-depth discussion.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot of music interpretation or lyric interpretation. Equine therapy is big right now and animal assisted. So yeah, there's a lot.
And there is yoga for 12-step recovery too.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I'm trying to do that for my third. Does
Yeah.
have a little bit of trouble getting on.
That would be interesting, yeah.
I've
On
done
Zoom.
one before, like a few years ago, so I'm
Okay.
trying to do one again, because they have some, there's virtual options now.
You go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think about human games development, like the class I took in my first year, so
Yeah.
like utilizing gameplay
Yeah.
and like addiction work. So like think about who our adolescent gamers are, whether it's tabletop or even video games, how we can utilize recovery skills as an actual tabletop game.
Yep.
And it's something that they work towards. So like the same rewards that we get for leveling up our characters,
Yep.
what about our recovery skills? How do we level those up? How do we create a game just for that? Because we have like Raphael, I always forget his last name. He was in my class and he developed a video game on growing up with encephalitis. And it was like a really powerful mental health journey for like somebody who's playing that game and like grew up with that, because he grew up with that. So it's like if he can design video games that way, just imagine what video game designers can do with like mental health knowledge.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, there's so much cool stuff we can do.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Compassion fatigue's getting low.
And did you guys have any questions or any suggestions regarding what we can do for emotional regulation and addictions?
I couldn't hear everyone really well, but I was thinking like when you have a client who's been in active addiction or is very recently out of active addiction, and the neurotransmitters have been firing all over the place, that you just need to do a significant amount of just practicing and identifying emotions accurately. Maybe that's already been said, I'm not sure.
No.
But just talking about, and maybe just some psycho-ed around what their emotions feel like, and naming those feelings, and without that knowledge, they can't really regulate what they can't name. So I'm just thinking that that would be really important, more for active addiction or fresh out of active addiction.
Yes, that was not mentioned, so thank you. Anyone else? Or any questions too? Okay. Do you guys have any more questions or any comments? Okay, and I'll take the evaluation sheets too from you guys.